Picture this. I'm standing in what was supposed to be my dream garden, staring at what looked more like a moonscape than fertile ground. The soil was cracked like an old leather boot, hard as concrete, and about as welcoming to plant life as a parking lot. Not a single green thing dared to emerge from this barren wasteland I optimistically called my garden bed. The few attempts I'd made at planting vegetables had resulted in nothing but disappointment and wilted seedlings that seemed to give up before they even started. After 3 seasons of failure, I was ready to throw in the trowel completely. I'd tried everything the conventional gardening wisdom suggested: more water, different fertilizers, repositioning for better sun exposure, even talking to my plants with encouraging words. Nothing worked. The reality hit me like a sledgehammer to my gardening pride. This wasn't about watering schedules or sun angles. This was about something far more fundamental and critical that I'd been completely ignoring. The truth was staring me right in the face, quite literally. My soil was dead. Not dormant, not challenging, but genuinely lifeless. Years of neglect, compaction from foot traffic, and nutrient depletion had created what soil scientists would call a biological desert. The organic matter had long since disappeared, the beneficial microorganisms had packed up and left, and the natural soil structure had collapsed into an impermeable barrier that repelled both water and plant roots. I was trying to grow life in death, and it simply wasn't working. That's when I discovered what I now call my soil superheroes, specific cover crop plants that don't just grow in challenging conditions, they actively work to transform dead soil into living, breathing earth. Unlike regular garden plants that simply take nutrients from the soil, these remarkable plants actually give back more than they take, functioning like living soil rehabilitation specialists. The stars of this transformation story are legumes, particularly clover, vetch, and other nitrogen-fixing plants that possess abilities that seem almost magical. These plants have formed an evolutionary partnership with specialized bacteria called rhizobia that live in small nodules on their roots. While the plant provides the bacteria with sugars and carbohydrates, the bacteria return the favor by capturing nitrogen from the air, which makes up about 78% of our atmosphere but is typically unavailable to plants, and converting it into a form that plants can actually use. What makes clover particularly special as a soil superhero is its growth habit and versatility. Crimson clover, for instance, creates a dense, spreading mat that not only fixes nitrogen but also acts as a living mulch, suppressing weeds while protecting the soil surface from erosion and temperature extremes. White clover, being perennial in many climates, can provide year-round soil protection and continuous nitrogen fixation. The fibrous root system of clover species works constantly to improve soil structure, creating pathways for water and air, while gradually adding organic matter as fine roots naturally die and decompose. Vetch brings its own unique superpowers to the soil rehabilitation team. With its vigorous deep taproot system, vetch acts like nature's jackhammer, penetrating compacted soil layers that other plants simply cannot breach. This root action creates natural drainage channels and brings nutrients from deeper soil layers up to the surface where other plants can access them. When vetch decomposes, it releases nitrogen rapidly, providing an almost immediate fertility boost for subsequent plantings. Its vining growth habit allows it to produce enormous amounts of biomass, which translates to massive organic matter additions when incorporated into the soil. The broader category of beneficial legumes extends this soil healing toolkit even further. Alfalfa, with its exceptionally deep taproot that can extend 10 feet or more into the ground, can access nutrients and water from depths that seem impossible, while simultaneously breaking up hard pan layers that have formed over years of soil compaction. Field peas provide quick nitrogen fixation and biomass production in cooler weather when other cover crops might struggle. Each of these soil superheroes brings specific abilities that address different aspects of soil degradation. The initial planting process was surprisingly simple, which gave me hope that this approach might actually work where everything else had failed. I started by loosening the surface of my concrete hard soil with a garden fork, creating just enough disturbance to give the seeds a fighting chance. Rather than trying to amend the entire bed with expensive inputs, I focused on getting these soil superheroes established so they could do the heavy lifting for me. I scattered crimson clover and hairy vetch seeds across the prepared area, mixing them with a small amount of compost to provide initial nutrients and improve seed-to-soil contact. The beauty of cover crops is that they're designed to establish quickly in challenging conditions. After all, their evolutionary purpose is to colonize disturbed or marginal soils. Within just 2 weeks, I began seeing the first green shoots emerging from what had been lifeless dirt, and I knew something special was beginning to happen. The real magic became apparent as the weeks progressed. By the end of the first month, what had been bare, cracked earth was covered with a carpet of green that seemed to grow denser by the day. But the changes weren't just cosmetic. When I gently dug into the soil to check on root development, I was amazed to find that the previously rock-hard surface was beginning to crumble more easily. The plant roots were already starting their work of creating soil structure and adding organic matter. By the 3rd month, the transformation was dramatic enough that visitors to my garden couldn't believe it was the same space. The soil had visibly darkened as organic matter began accumulating from decomposing fine roots and leaf litter. When I squeezed a handful of soil, instead of getting a concrete-like clump, it crumbled between my fingers with the texture of rich chocolate cake. Most exciting of all, earthworms had discovered my garden bed and were working alongside my soil superheroes to create the complex ecosystem that healthy soil requires. The cover crop plants themselves were thriving beyond my expectations, with the clover creating a dense emerald carpet that stayed green even through light frosts, while the vetch began its characteristic climbing growth, reaching impressive heights and producing abundant biomass. Every day brought visible proof that my soil rehabilitation project was succeeding in ways I hadn't dared to hope for just months earlier. The true genius of using soil superhero plants lies not just in their immediate impact, but in how they set the stage for long-term garden success. As these cover crops continue their work throughout their growing cycle, they're essentially creating a soil bank account that will pay dividends for years to come. The nitrogen they fix doesn't disappear when the plants die. It remains in the soil, available for future crops. The organic matter they add improves soil structure permanently, creating better drainage in clay soils and better water retention in sandy soils. Integration of these soil superheroes into an existing garden requires some strategic thinking, but the approaches are surprisingly flexible. In established vegetable gardens, cover crops can be planted in unused sections during the off-season, then mowed and tilled in before spring planting. For year-round gardeners, strips of cover crops can be planted between crop rows, providing ongoing soil improvement while the main crops are growing. Even container gardeners can benefit by dedicating some pots to cover crops that can be chopped and composted to improve potting mix for other containers. The concept of companion planting takes on new meaning when soil superheroes are involved. Rather than simply considering which plants grow well together, the focus shifts to which combinations provide the greatest soil benefits. Planting clover as a living mulch around fruit trees provides continuous nitrogen fixation while suppressing weeds and conserving soil moisture. Interplanting quick-growing legumes like field peas between slower-growing crops maximizes soil coverage and nitrogen production throughout the growing season. Understanding the timing and management of soil superhero plants is crucial for maximizing their benefits. Annual cover crops like crimson clover and hairy vetch should be allowed to flower and begin setting seed before being mowed or tilled in, as this timing ensures maximum nitrogen fixation and biomass production. Perennial species like white clover can be managed through selective mowing, allowing them to persist while controlling their spread. The key is working with the natural growth cycles of these plants rather than against them. The transformation of my dead garden into thriving, living soil proves that even the most challenging gardening situations can be turned around with the right approach. The secret isn't expensive soil amendments or complex techniques, it's harnessing the power of plants that have been improving soil for millions of years. These soil superheroes don't just fix nitrogen or break up compaction, they rebuild entire soil ecosystems from the ground up. The most important lesson from this journey is that soil health must be the foundation of any successful garden. No amount of fertilizer, water, or wishful thinking can compensate for dead, depleted soil. But the encouraging news is that soil can be brought back to life more quickly than most gardeners realize, thanks to the remarkable abilities of cover crop plants that actively work to improve growing conditions for themselves and everything that comes after them. Your own garden's soil issues might be different from mine, but the principles remain the same. Whether you're dealing with compacted clay, depleted sandy soil, or ground that's been covered in concrete for decades, there are soil superhero plants that can begin the rehabilitation process. The key is starting with a soil test to understand your specific challenges, then selecting the cover crops that address those particular problems. Take action today by examining your garden beds and identifying areas that could benefit from soil superhero intervention. Start small with a single bed or even a small section and plant your first cover crop this season. Document the changes with photos and soil tests so you can witness the transformation as it unfolds. Remember that soil improvement is an investment that pays compound interest. Every season of cover cropping makes your soil more fertile, more resilient, and more productive for decades to come. Your garden's redemption story is waiting to be written, and it begins with recognizing that healthy soil is the foundation of gardening success. Don't let another growing season pass, struggling with poor soil, when nature has provided these remarkable plants that can transform any growing space into the fertile garden of your dreams. If this guide has inspired you to start your own soil transformation journey, make sure to subscribe to Soil Sorcery Studio for more in-depth tutorials and updates on soil health techniques that really work. Share this guide with fellow gardeners who might be struggling with their own soil challenges. Together we can spread the word about these incredible soil superheroes and help create healthier gardens everywhere. Your soil, your plants, and your future harvest will thank you for taking this crucial first step toward true garden redemption.